I really wanted to come on and just do a little bit of the highlights of everything that we have seen over the last 4 years in the first Biden-Harris administration. And it really has been an incredible honor to be asked to speak with you all tonight about all of the great things that are going to happen in Pennsylvania. But let's start by hitting some of the high notes of everything that has happened in our country since Joe Biden has taken over as president. You know, it was under the presidency of Joe Biden that the first Black woman to serve on our Supreme Court, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, was nominated and confirmed. And President Biden's other judicial appointees include really record percentages of women, racial and ethnic minorities, civil rights lawyers, and public defenders. 66% of President Biden's nominees are women, and 65% are people of color. And let's just talk a little bit about the things that the Biden-Harris administration has done to protect reproductive justice. So under the administration, Joe Biden signed an executive order protecting reproductive rights, ensuring that patients receive life-saving care, protecting patient privacy and sensitive health info, protecting access to reproductive health care, including abortion during a medical emergency, and supporting a patient's right to travel across state lines for medical care. I want to talk just a little bit about student debt relief and really mention the historic student debt relief to middle and working class families that we've seen under this administration. More than 40 million borrowers stand to benefit, and nearly 20 million borrowers will have their loans fully canceled. And that means that 90% of that relief is going to go to out-of-school borrowers earning less than $75,000 a year, people that really need it. No individual or household in the top 5% of incomes will benefit from that student debt relief. So Biden is really keeping a promise there that he has made to working people across our nation. And, you know, that just goes to show how important it is that we strengthen our economy. We've seen 2 of the strongest years of job growth in history under the Biden-Harris administration, nearly 11 million jobs created in 2021, a 3.5% national and Pennsylvania unemployment rate. That is the lowest in 50 years, everyone. I just want to reiterate, the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years, including 750,000 new manufacturing jobs across our country, near record low unemployment rates for Hispanic Americans, near record unemployment rates for African Americans, and record unemployment rates for people with disabilities. Under the Biden-Harris administration, the most federal contracting dollars ever awarded to small businesses and historically disadvantaged small businesses, including women-owned businesses, have been seen here. He's taken over 100 actions to lower household energy costs by $100 per year, helped bring gas prices down more than $1.60 from their summer 2022 peak, and increased the maximum value of Pell Grants by $900. Millions of Americans are saving $800 per year on health insurance coverage, and he has implemented a $15 minimum wage for federal workers and contractors. And some other crucial victories: infrastructure investments in all 50 states, District of Columbia, territories, and throughout our tribal nations. Over 16 million households receiving lower cost or free high-speed internet through the Affordable Connectivity Program. He signed legislation to reauthorize and strengthen the Violence Against Women Act, signed the most significant gun violence prevention legislation in nearly 30 years, and last but not least, certainly near and dear to my heart as a nurse who administered almost 1,000 vaccines during the COVID pandemic, we see 79% of American adults have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Those are just some of the highlights that we have seen across our nation under the Biden-Harris administration. And I am so excited that your first speaker tonight is someone who is making the incredible strides that we are hearing about nationally here in our wonderful Commonwealth as well. Speaker Joanna McClinton is the first woman Speaker of the Pennsylvania House, and under her capable leadership, we have seen more than 200 incredible bills come over from the House and come over to the Senate. We're hoping that we'll be able to move those things, but things like the Pennsylvania Fairness Act that would ensure that no one is discriminated based on who they love or how they identify, sweeping gun reform measures, ensuring that no Pennsylvania patient is subject to a pelvic or rectal exam in the hospital without their express consent to the passage last year of a budget that prioritized public schools over private interests. All of that is thanks to the incredible leadership of Joanna McClinton. Majorities matter, leadership matters. I know that you all know that, and that's why you're on this call tonight. And I am thrilled that you're going to get to hear from Joanna McClinton, and I think she's up next.
Thank you so much, Senator Collett. It means the world that you came in. And Red, Wine, and Blue is not, endorsing any candidates here. We are nonpartisan, but we did want to share what has been accomplished and talk about, that's why we get involved. Fighting extremism and choosing the right candidates makes a huge difference. And by doing so, we've accomplished so much in the last 4 years. And now, Speaker McClinton, it is really an honor to turn this over to you. Thank you
so much, Red, Wine, and Blue. Thank you, Senator Collett, for your enthusiastic and warm introduction. And most importantly, thank you for your hard work every day fighting for our rights in the Pennsylvania Senate. We appreciate your selfless leadership and are grateful to have you and go across the state and have Senator Williams here this evening. So this evening, I have a little bit of time to just talk about some of the things Senator Collett started discussing, the accomplishments that we have been able to do in the House, thanks to our friends in the Senate. I'm so very grateful every day to have the trust of my neighbors to be their voice in Harrisburg. And I'm humbled every day that my colleagues, of course, were able to choose and vote to elect me to become the first woman to be Speaker of the House. I'm so grateful to serve on a team with wonderful, wonderful members and hardworking leaders. And there's so many women in state government right now, more than there have ever been. And we are really shifting the paradigm of what leadership looks like. I can recall not long ago becoming the first woman to be our caucus chair and saying on that night, leadership should and can look like any one of us, but we have to have the opportunities and we've got to be in the rooms to get the opportunity. So we've been working really hard because equity is important in the House. The first day I was Speaker, the first full day, we changed our rules to the House and we strengthened our sexual harassment and discrimination language for the first time ever, making sure that you no longer can only be a House employee to talk about what could be a very unfortunate interaction with one of our colleagues. You could have worked in the Senate and you wouldn't have been able to file an ethics complaint. And I was staff in the Senate and certainly have seen the way the customs of the building go that are not respectful of women, of staff, of lobbyists. And I'm so grateful that now any person in the public is able to report harassment. Very, very personal to me as the first woman to lead the institution, as a woman who's been staffed, as I said, in the Senate, and the first woman to serve my district. I understand very clearly what can happen and how people hide behind titles and think that rules and laws and expectations of respect do not apply to them. The other thing that we did in our rules I'm proud of is we gave the minority party much more representation on every committee, very different from the way we were treated for our last 12 years in the minority. We changed the split. It used to be 14-11. It's now, from 15-10 to 14-11. We changed the discharge resolution process so that if 50 members, 25 Republicans and 25 Democrats sign it, that it actually has to be a question put toward the House, and also improve the process for passing constitutional amendments. There must be at least one amendment one hearing before an amendment can be considered by the full House. We all remember that first week of July in 2022, it was a Thursday night in the Senate that my sisters there were fighting what would have been the most restrictive voter ID in the nation, an abortion ban, and so many other really ridiculous items all in one bill. And then on a Friday night, we were on the House the next day fighting it. And we recognized that Republicans in that moment showed the entire world that we are not different in Pennsylvania. No, we're not south of the border, but we could easily be Texas. And with our 1-seat majority, I'm so very proud that we've been able to band together and stand against any sorts of radical extremist ideas like the ones they were trying to send to the voters, because they would have teed it up to send to the voters in 2023 last year, in what's traditionally considered an off-cycle election, where all the data points that there is a decreased turnout because of the choices we make on those seasons. But in terms of policy accomplishments, without our 1-seat majority, we would not have been able to pass the Fairness Act, which makes sure no matter who you love in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania or how you show up, that you will not ever lose your job or your housing. Right now, that is still the law. Like, it is legal to discriminate. So we are looking forward to our friends in the Senate being able to vote for that this spring. We also passed over the Crown Act, which makes sure that the Human Relations Code provides an additional trait of race, which is one's hair, how they choose to style their hair or how it naturally grows out of their head, to make sure that no one loses job opportunities over hair discrimination. And most importantly, saving lives through common sense, broadly supported gun safety bills that will literally save lives. Gun violence is the #1 killer of children across the nation. No, not just in Philadelphia, but very sadly everywhere. And that being the case, we have to do more. We passed the red flag law, which means that a family member is able to let law enforcement know that someone should come before a judge and they need to be temporarily disarmed because they're having some sort of breakdown. I always point to the awful incidents in my community, like 1 block outside my district before the 4th of July last year, where one of our neighbors went on a rampage and shot several people, killed several people, unsuspected victims coming home from work, getting out of their cars, didn't even have an opportunity to defend themselves in the slightest way. That person had been having a mental breakdown for some time. It was uncovered that the roommates did not know who to call or what to do. And then I think about rural incidents that have occurred. That was in the beginning of July last year. In the middle of June last year in Juniata County, Pennsylvania State Police came under fire by a neighbor who was also undergoing a mental health challenge. And sadly, we lost a trooper in that incident, and several others were shot with shotguns. And so we recognize that a red flag law can save lives, and also the gun show loophole requirement that would is widely supported by almost most of Pennsylvania's voters. 89%. That's not 89% Republican or 89% Democrat. 89% of our entire voting age population supports closing the loophole that requires a background check on any firearm purchase, including long guns. And then I've been very, very grateful to steer some bills through the House to protect access to abortion. The first bill would protect women seeking care here in Pennsylvania that would have been criminally penalized in other states. We had a hearing in December on adding a reproductive rights amendment to Pennsylvania's Constitution. That's the first step to having the bill to be considered in committee and voted on the House. In January, we introduced a bill, hasn't moved anywhere yet, to remove the undue barriers to abortion access, including to eliminate some of the requirements that these facilities meet the same regulations as ambulatory surgical centers. They've been excessive mandates that have, quite frankly, closed providers throughout rural parts of Pennsylvania and really limited the access in Pennsylvania, and that's something that's not okay. And then we really want to boost the minimum wage. We recognize Pennsylvania is far behind every neighboring state, including Republican-controlled Ohio and West Virginia. It's embarrassingly low that we've been stuck at $7.25, and more than 1 million of our neighbors would benefit from an increase of the minimum wage. And of those neighbors, 60% are women. So we want to make sure that minimum wage boosts the economy. So I've talked a little bit about things that we know the Senate, especially our colleagues here tonight, look forward to voting on. But let's talk about what the House sent over to the Senate that the Senate has voted on and got to our governor's desk. The property tax rent rebate program, we've added about 200,000 more people to be eligible, senior citizens, all of whom were making just a few dollars too much to get that benefit for the last 15 years. And we've tripled the amount that people are getting right now who are doing their taxes for the child care independent tax credit. A lot of words. I can't say them right now. There are more than 200,000 Pennsylvania families that now qualify, thanks to us getting that bipartisan bill out. Also, we got universal free breakfast in the budget that we finished. And the first bill that we were able to consider in the House, I was very proud to consider President Pro Tem Senator Ward's bill to save lives by making sure that there are out-of-pocket expenses completely eliminated for breast MRIs, ultrasounds, and genetic testing. It's not all for women, but for patients who have higher risks and more exposed to breast cancer. So while we have sent about 260 pieces of legislation to the Senate, we're waiting patiently to get some of them back. But it is truly an honor to be here to just briefly discuss what a difference even a one-seat majority has made. And we are just, a year and a couple months into it. We go all the way to November, and I look forward to us being able to stand with our partners in the Senate, surrounded by our governor as he signs those bills that I mentioned into law to really push Pennsylvania forward, and most importantly, let everybody know what distinction we have with, even as the governor likes to say, being the only state right now that has a divided legislature, divided government, meaning everywhere else, believe it or not, is either all Republican or all Democrat governor, state house, or assembly, whatever it's called, and the Senate. But Pennsylvania is unique in that way for now. And we certainly are working very hard to make sure that voters know what's at stake this coming November.
Thank you so much. And I will say, I just recently learned that we are the oldest state legislature in the country. So it makes me even more proud to have you as our first female running it for us in Pennsylvania. Thank you. And now we're going to introduce Senator Lindsey Williams. She's in Allegheny County, the 38th, right, district out there?
Right.
Okay. Spent her career fighting for everyone. Came out of school, started working for a whistleblower organization, got involved with unions, including the teachers union and the Teamsters, fighting for everyone's rights to have a job and be treated fairly and get paid well. Amazing what she's done. Top priority right now is serving her constituents. She's committed to fighting for family-sustaining union jobs, fully funding education for all students, and access to quality, affordable health care for all of us here in Pennsylvania. And thank you so much for being here. Love to have you talk about what happens in the Senate when Speaker McClinton and her team sends you over 200 bills. What happens, and what's it going to take when we finally take control of the Senate in November also, because we only have to flip how many seats? 4? I think three.
Three, yeah. But tie and yeah.
You got to hold the rest.
I'll take more.
3 more. Oh, I'll take them too. So take it away, Senator. Thank you.
I'm going to be a little bit of the Debbie Downer of the group, because since I'm in the Senate and in the minority, we are seeing all those great bills that Speaker McClinton talked about sitting and languishing in various committees, whether that be additional labor protections, the Crown Act, common sense gun safety reform, the Fairness Act. Those are all many of them have broad bipartisan support when actually voted on. But unfortunately, unlike the rules changes that Speaker McClinton put into act, we don't have protections in the Senate to protect minority participation. We have vastly outsized committees where we are the vast majority of them. We have no right to see things until they are presented to us with no notice to vote on them. We have no ability to have a discharge petition to get our bills heard. And the bills that are coming out of the Senate are by and large Republican sponsored. You see very few Democratic bills coming out of the Senate. We've been able to work and within the budget negotiations get some of those great things that Speaker McClinton talked about, like prime sponsor school breakfast, excited that after, 3 years, we can continue that again, which seems like not a hard lift, but it's still a hard lift in where we're at right now. So but I do feel like it helps me sleep a little better at night, knowing that the terrible stuff that we sometimes do on the Senate side, like banning trans girls from playing sports, banning books, abortion bans, all that stuff, it's going to go over to the House and die. So I have to take a little bit of joy, and that the work that has been done in the House by so many people to get to that majority, and hopefully we can grow that majority, that the bad things we're doing do go over there and die, and that there is respect, because, you know, there's damage done every time we pass these really bad bills. When we have hours of hate speech on the Senate floor promoting book bans and don't say gay bills and things like that. One day we did all 3 of those bills in the Senate in one day. And I got to tell you, it was rough. And the only thing that made me feel better was that when it went over to the other side, it wasn't going anywhere. But we have to band together to make sure that we get to a majority in the Senate, so we can start passing those bills. Or even if we close that margin and we know that we have to start, you know, working with each other more, and we widen the margin in the House, like knowing that that is a strong majority is going to make a difference in what we see out of the Senate. In the Senate Education Committee, we also have to deal with the fallout from the Commonwealth Court decision that finally, for the first time that we've all seen for so long, that our schools are inequitably and underfunded, unconstitutionally underfunded and inequitably funded. And we have the obligation to fix that for generations of students. And that means investing in special education, in pre-K, in school facilities, in all kinds of things that will help prepare our students. And hopefully we can also hold the line in the House when it comes to privatizing our schools and vouchers. And I'm very grateful that the House has held the line on that, because we have some convincing for our governor in that regard, is that our constitutional obligation is for a public system. So that's just a little bit of the highlights. I'm sorry, mine was a little more depressing, but I think together we can change what I'm experiencing in the state Senate.
Thank you. And I wouldn't say it's depressing. I think it's wonderful for people to have an honest view of what's happening there. I don't know if I would have had the fortitude to handle a day with all 3 of those coming on the floor and listening to the horrible negativity. And I never thought about the fact that you have Speaker McClinton and the whole team over in the House ready to block it for you. So thank you for fighting it and knowing we've got to hold this and make sure we keep it going right. Wow, it's just amazing. So thank you again. Do you want to talk a little bit about on Friday, you became really famous here at Red, Wine, and Blue because somebody tweeted out and Instagram and everything, your conversation about a moratorium on cyber charter schools.
Yes. So that came as a result of, we've had a kind of moratorium in place for the last 8 years under Governor Wolf. No cyber charters were approved. There are already 13 existing cyber charters in Pennsylvania. So there are those options available for families who choose to. However, those 13 schools are all on a performance plan. They all are performing academically for students less than brick and mortar charters and our traditional public schools. And we approved I didn't. The Department of Education approved a new cyber charter that is backed by a for-profit, multi-million-dollar for-profit company that had a deficient application on its face. So it was missing financial independence from Pearson, which is the corporation. It didn't have stuff on professional development for educators, supports for English language students, curriculum. The letter had just like deficiency after deficiency and was still approved. And that goes back to our taxpayers as well. Like, we don't have fairness in how we fund cyber charters. The House passed a cyber charter tuition rate, and the governor proposed one in his budget. So, and there is some bipartisan support to reform how we fund that. So we shouldn't be passing and creating any new additional cyber charters until at a basic those reforms are put into place and we can make sure that students are achieving academically and that is not wasting taxpayer dollars. We spend $1 billion on cyber charters right now, and there's about $17 million in fraud of cyber charters spending money on sponsorships at baseball games and advertisements and things saying that it's free when it's not. It's taxpayer dollars. So a moratorium, hopefully, on new cyber charters until we can look at how we fund those and make sure that they are adequately performing for our kids.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. And thanks for explaining it in a way that makes sense to us all.
You're welcome.
Next, I want to bring on Joshua Smithley. Josh came to my attention because I'm on Twitter. I'll never call it X, it's Twitter. And I started to note this young man is posting numbers of Pennsylvania. And he's really digging into the voter rolls by county and starting to discuss trends. And then when the election was over and I went back and looked at his numbers, he was coming closer than a lot of the people with large budgets to run these kind of programs. And he was just doing it all on his own. So I'm really excited tonight. Josh works in the aviation industry, but somehow became very interested and got a passion here for Pennsylvania politics. He specializes in data analytics and electoral breakdowns for the state. He was very successful in 2022 and 2023 in forecasting the election results by using some new techniques that he put together and the introduction of state mail-in voting system. I'm really excited that he's going to continue his work through 2024. If you're not following him on Twitter, I'm going to put his handle in the chat because you should be following him. His work's really amazing. So Josh, I want to make sure, are you on mute? Let me see.
Oh, I am. I'm right here. Thank you.
Yay.
I
There we go.
appreciate it. And thank you for that glow up. Hello everybody. My name is Josh. I'm not as great an orator, the speaker, or Senator Williams, but I'll do my best and kind of walk through what's happening in Pennsylvania. And fun fact, I failed algebra 3 times. So let that be known, but somehow I'm now very professional. There's been many years since then. But okay, I'm going to get a slideshow together and start presenting it. I'm gonna kind of be a reeler and walk you through what the state is in Pennsylvania right now and how things are looking for our rater in the state house and the state senate. So election 2024 data overview. My Twitter handle is right up there for those who are interested. I'm not gonna call it X because Elon Musk is gonna change it again probably tomorrow. It's gonna stay Twitter for me. It's gonna stay that way forever. So data overview. All right, we're gonna recap what happened in 2023 and 2022. I'm sorry I accidentally changed the number. But still, what happened in 2022, we had, as you know, not really a red wave. There was a lot of conversation about the red wave, but never came to be. And in Pennsylvania, we managed to draw Republican to almost a tie in the generic ballot. So they just had half a point in turnout advantage. And in that environment, we managed to elect, of course, Senator Fireman by 5 points. The overall 538 get was off by 7 points in favor of Dr. Odd, who's somewhere back in New Jersey. I don't know where, but he's gone now. We managed to elect Governor Shapiro by an astounding 15-point landslide. And our now speaker well knows we were able to flip the Pennsylvania House and we held firm in most down ballot rates. And what that means is we didn't necessarily slip too much or we didn't lose a massive amount of seats elsewhere. And then the following year in 2023, we nailed some more major stuff. And we actually managed to create a Democratic-leaning environment that past November. I'm still crunching some numbers, but we have roughly a 3-point turnout advantage. And what we were able to do was we elected Justice McCaffrey by over 7 points, way more than I originally forecasted. I thought he would win by 4, but independent and more Republican voted for him than I had originally thought, enabling him to win by 7 points. And the larger point of that story is, as you know, we swept a massive amount of down ballot rates that we flipped school board administrative petition. It was literally a blue wave all over the state, and I could not believe what I was seeing. I expected something that here and there, but I didn't expect the whole board to be that strongly in favor of the Democratic Party. So that's what happened over the last 2 years electorally. Now we're going to talk about trend. And trend-wise, we have a couple things we need to keep in mind. So statewide registration today in Pennsylvania, we have about 3.9 million Democrats registered. We have about 3.5 million Republican, and as of now, we have roughly 1.3 million independent. And one thing I will note is that in most elections, especially when breaking down mail ballots and early voting, independents tend to break the Democrats by about 30 points, give or take in that category, and it'll go up a little bit and down depending on if we have a blue wave or red wave or whatever, but it's roughly there. And overall, Democrats maintain a 400,000 voter edge in Pennsylvania as of today. And when we talk about what that means, let's take a few observations. Some of you know the governor and the State Department instituted automatic voter registration a few months ago, and that has been a massive boon for new voters. And the good news is that there have been no notable trend that inherently favors both parties when it comes to automatic registration, because Democrats compose the smaller share, Republicans a little more, but independent the most outside. And as you know, they split more in favor of Democrats. So it's about even for both. And following up from that, let's say 10, 20 years ago, Democratic registration in the state used to be a lot higher. It used to be 600, 700, 800,000. And today it's 400,000, and it's been going down. But I want to say that it's another scary cost for a line, because one thing to note about voter registration is that it tends to be a lagging indicator. And so when a state like Pennsylvania switches partisanship really violently, like president, I'm sorry, he's no longer president, I'm Donald Trump. In 2016, he won the state by like a point or so, and partisanship catches up to that point, though kind of pushing Pennsylvania more toward a blue tilting state, but not overwhelmingly so. So when you see the registration go down, again, not necessarily a bad thing, because the gap is closing in rural county. But on our end, our registration advantage is actually increased in southeastern Pennsylvania and Cumberland County. And I think we'll hear red, wine, and blue. One thing I would note is I would like to see some aggressive push when it comes to registering new voters in the state. Even though there's automatic registration, there are a number of groups in the GOP who like to go to show. They pull out forms, they register people to vote, and I like to make sure we're also doing the same and just pushing people to vote wherever we can. So that way we can maintain some parity with the numbers. And that's the trend. We're going to look toward the State House now. So the Pennsylvania State House, which the Speaker had, we won control in 2022. The challenge is now, how do we keep it? And my initial rating, that is the rating for today, nothing else. The chamber is going to start up tilt Democrat which means we're slightly favored to hold it, but not overwhelmingly. It's still very much in a situation where it can go either way. And if the election were held today, the median outcome would be 104 seats, which is 2 more than what our current majority is. And a big reason for that is the center of gravity in the House of the Speaker is well aware is shifting more towards southeastern Pennsylvania, which you can see on the bottom right-hand corner of the map. And a big reason is that southeastern Pennsylvania has been a hotbed for rejecting extremists, and they don't really like the far-right stuff that's being pushed by many Republican candidates. And if that happens, more and more Republican incumbents are being pushed out of their seats in that area of the state. And it's a big reason why we were able to take the House back in 22. And now that we have it, we have a bigger pool of incumbent, and that means more money they're able to raise. They have the incumbency advantage. So it makes holding the House a little bit of a less of a lot. On top of that, we're going to have a lot more competitive rates than southeastern Pennsylvania this year. We're going to have HD 18 in Bucked, House District 150 in Delaware. They slightly lean Democrat, but they have Republican currently holding those seats. These are prime target for flipping more so than it is the other way around. And if we have a really good night, like I'm talking blue wave level, we also have a couple of other good opportunities in the state, like HD 7, which is north of Beaver County. We have HD 88, which is roughly around Cumberland County, HD 142 over back in southeastern Pennsylvania, stuff like that. So that's the state house today. We're going to move over to the state Senate, and this is where I hate to be the Debbie Downer to borrow the term from Senator Williams. The big difficulty is in the state Senate map. And the reason why, because it's a very, very small map this year. Unlike in 22, I'm going to be frank, we are blue a number of winnable state Senate races for a number of reasons. We didn't think it would be that competitive. We didn't think there would be a good allocation of resources, stuff like that. So because of that, we are baked in the worst part of the Senate map. And so really there's only 3 flippable seats, and we have SD 15 in Joplin County. It's an open seat. The good news for us is it's basically an automatic flip because Biden won that state by 15 points. It's very, very blue up and down the ballot. And the Republican incumbent vacated that state partially, one reason being he knew that would come in. And we have Patty Kim, who by all accounts a wonderful person, should be able to flip that state easily. And over in SD 37 we have Devlin Robinson, who I know vaguely about it, but some of you might know he made some comment about, I believe, firefighters, and that's then a hearing that one time he's an interesting person. He represents what currently read at the top of Steve. It technically slightly leaned Democrat, but Trump won that state by 1 point. And it routinely flipped back and forth between both parties. So you're gonna have to invest a lot of time and money because it is a true toss-up. We actually won it back a couple of years ago, but Senator Robinson flipped it back a couple of years later. So it's very swingy. And the last one is SD 49 in Erie County, and that is why the GOP is likely to hold on to the Senate. And the reason is because Dan Lawland, the incumbent, he is the one person in Erie County who can basically defy anything that Democrats throw at him, including the partisan lane of that seat. So for example, Biden won it by 2.5 points. It had the lean of 7. Senator Biden won it by about 10 points. Governor Shapiro won it by 20, 25. And somehow Dan Lawland hold on by 25, 30 points. I have to check. I don't know how he does it, but a big reason for that is he had a lot of union support and other things in Erie County. And if you want any chance at all of taking the state senate, or at least being able to tie it so the lieutenant governor can break ties, you have to make sure Dan Rollins, Steve Blood, and Jim Wood is our candidate for that. He's the former chair of the Erie Democratic Party. And there's a lot of work to be done. And my suggestion is most of these resources need to go into Erie County and Dan Rollins, Steve, and to a smaller tent as D37. There will have to be a clean sweep of all three to be able to take the Senate. I did want to point out, however, there is a small defense thing, and that's an open seat in Allegheny County. Nick Piscano is running for it. It was redrawn to be much more Democratic in the next round of redistricting. I only bring it up because we only won it by 69 votes in 2020. And yet, I'm being real, 69 votes. And the current incumbent retiring, that's why he's running. And like I said, the lot blue and now it's not really anything to worry about, but just kind of keep it on the radar. Maybe donate $1 to a little bit of time, but otherwise we'll be fine. And that's that for the state senate. The last thing we're going to get to is the DPA average. And this is a little something I put together, and it's a big reason why I was able to be a lot more accurate in 22 and 23 than a lot of other pollsters and pundits and what have you. And so what the DPA average is, it composed of in-house Pennsylvania pollsters. Pennsylvania is very fortunate to have 4 big in-house pollsters. We got Franklin and Marshall, Susquehanna, Commonwealth, and Muhlenberg. And these are really the big ones where they weigh the state properly and they have a lot of good Pennsylvania being. So I put them in the average. I put certain internals I can put Carol weighted appropriately and a lot of other factors that go into that overall average. And I update it monthly. I tweet out if more data comes in. And a big reminder when I do that, it's a snapshot of what the rates look like now. Not necessarily what they're going to be in November. That's a really big deal because you can see the average. It looked rosy, it looked really good for us, but it might not be that way 5 months from now. So our goal collectively is to make sure these numbers stay the way they are now. Because if in November the generic ballot is 2 or 3 point Democrat, we'll be able to keep the state house. Might have an outside shot of the Senate. Will have to see. Really depend. Biden should be able to barely win, and Senator Katie, as you all know, will win in a blowout as he usually does. And a word about Senator Katie's race, since I didn't quite cover that. He's doing great. Donate your time and effort to him if you can. Generally, I'm trying to figure out how to describe it. The reason why he wins so big and so often is because he treats his weight like it's a toss-up weight, as he should, does it year after year. He dedicates his time, his energy. I was able to take a peek at some internal, and the McCormick campaign currently underrunning Trump by like 6 or 7 points on average. So Senator Katie currently doing great. But like I said, overall, let's keep it that way. And when it comes to November, I love to see these numbers stay the way they are, but to have a great night.
Anyone want to put in the chat questions for anyone who presented for us tonight? And thank you, Josh. I'm going to say I truly believe we are going to flip the Senate. I know it might be a long shot, but I believe in the underdog, and I'm going to be working my butt off to help us flip it.
And the only thing that's going to help us flip it is all the hard work that everybody does for me and for Joanna, all our state reps, Maria Collett. Like all this work makes the big difference. Like
Yeah.
Josh said that one race was 69 votes. My race in 2018 was a 0.5%. So those votes per precinct matter, and educating people about the issues and why it's important really does matter for every single one of these.
And in 2022, the last event I did was in the Chester County Chamber of Commerce. I won't name them, but I was with one of Senator Williams' Republican colleagues who was telling me they were going to beat her, they were going to beat Senator Muth, and someone else. I said, first of all, the House candidates are working their tails off, not only to flip the open seats in Senator Williams' district, but they do joint canvassing every day. Like, I'm like, I've been out there. I'm like, I've been with Dr. Vinkit. I've been with Mandy. They are working together. So not only are you not defeating these women, we are also, and I didn't think we were going to flip, you know, that's a true confession of my life. I said, we're coming back with at least 9 to 10 Democrats. I said, so make sure you tell your state rep. And he was just like, how's that happening? I'm like, what? Have you looked at what's going on? Are you kidding me? First of all, half the folks didn't even run. Once they saw that they were going to have to fight and work, they're like, oh, I'm out of here. I'd like to become something else. So I'm going on a tangent. I'm going to meet.
No, I like that. I like your tangent. We do have a question. Does it help if we write and contact our members of the House and Senate concerning items in committee to get the bills moved forward? Or is it pretty much it's dead in the water until we flip the Senate?
I mean, the only way that moves and the only thing that speaks to power is people. And so they do matter. And like all the, you know, stuff that was said helped us get free breakfast. Like those are the things that help us move some of the things. And with that constant pressure is how we're gonna accomplish anything. So I do think it matters. People listen, and maybe they might not do the thing you want, but maybe they'll stop doing the thing you don't want them to do, or they'll back up. Like we have to take our wins where we can get them. So sometimes like holding the line is really important, and all that matters. So yes, please contact your elected officials and tell them your personal story. Like tell them why it matters to you.
I will quickly say my first entry into politics was fighting for adoption reform in Pennsylvania to get the records open for people at the age of 18. And the first time I ever walked into a House of Representative office, they shut me down immediately and asked me, what did the Catholic Conference think? And finally, I got up the courage to start talking to them about what it means to someone who's never seen someone who looked like them, and pointed to their family photos and said, your children look just like you. And all of a sudden he spun around and gave me his full attention. So the personal stories do matter and do help. There's another question in here. Is there one place to send donations that would be distributed among the campaigns for the House and Senate in Pennsylvania?
So there is the Senate Democratic Campaign Committee, SDCC, and the HDCC, the House Democratic Campaign Committee, and the caucuses will use those money to help our targeted races.
Mm-hmm.
That is an easy way to do it.
Fantastic. All right. And we're going to have to wrap up because we're over time. Again, thank you everyone for bearing with us through the technical fun. And Red, Wine, and Blue has a free tool for you called Rally. We are going to send information out. Speaker talked about people canvassing out in Chester County. Canvassing is very important, but we know not everybody is willing to knock doors. So our Rally tool will allow you to canvass from the comfort of your couch. And we're going to teach you how to use relational organizing to get everybody to show up. If we show up, we will win. We know this. So thank you all so much for your time. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.